Two captured alien princesses were handed to a human warrior. The galaxy regretted it. The Chamber of Judgment floated at the center of the Galactic Coalition's capital station, a vast ring of metal and light suspended over a star that burned with cold blue fire. Representatives from 100 species watched from tiered balconies, their bodies wrapped in robes, armor, scales, or living light. The air vibrated with translation fields and restrained tension. At the center of the chamber stood two figures bound by energy cuffs. Princess Sarilith of the Vierk's dominion held her head high despite the restraints around her wrists. Her silver-blue skin shimmered faintly, a natural sign of controlled anger. Beside her stood Princess Kalira of the Thalan Ascendancy, taller, darker, her golden eyes sharp with calculation even in defeat. They were rivals by birth, enemies by history, yet today they shared the same fate: captured. The war that had burned across 12 sectors had finally reached its turning point when both princesses were taken during a failed joint evacuation. Their capture alone had silenced fleets and frozen battle lines. Entire empires now waited for the coalition's decision. High Arbiter Zelthun rose from the central dais. His elongated form cast a long shadow across the chamber as his voice echoed through every translator. "The coalition has deliberated," he announced. "The prisoners are too valuable to execute, too dangerous to return. Therefore, they will be placed under external custody." A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. Sarilith narrowed her eyes. External custody was rare, almost unheard of. Kalira tilted her head slightly, already sensing something was wrong. Zelthun continued, "To avoid accusations of favoritism or political leverage, the prisoners will be removed from coalition space and guarded by a neutral force." Murmurs grew louder. "Neutral," Sarilith said coldly. "There is no neutral force left in this war." "There is," the Arbiter replied, "one that the galaxy has long dismissed." The lights shifted and a new image appeared above the chamber floor. A single figure stood in the projection. Broad shoulders, 2 arms, 2 legs, scarred armor with no house markings. A face marked by age, lines, and old wounds. Dark eyes that looked straight ahead, unreadable. "Human?" Kalira asked, disbelief slipping through her composure. Laughter broke out among several delegates. Clicking sounds, hisses, harmonic pulses of amusement echoed around the chamber. "A single human," one ambassador scoffed. "You insult us." Zelthun raised a limb for silence. "The human warrior designated Marcus Hale will take custody. He will be stationed at Outpost Epsilon 9, beyond contested space." Sarilith's voice was sharp. "You would place us in the hands of a species barely holding a dozen systems." "Exactly," the Arbiter replied calmly. "Humans lack the fleets, alliances, and ambition to exploit you. They are expendable. If something goes wrong, the political loss is acceptable." The word hung heavy in the air. Kalira studied the projected human more closely. There was no pride in his stance, no fear, just stillness. That unsettled her more than the laughter. "You expect us to be guarded by one soldier?" she asked. "Yes." Sarilith laughed once, bitter and incredulous. "Then this galaxy truly has lost its mind." The decision was sealed within moments. Energy fields activated. The chamber dissolved into motion as the princesses were escorted away, their protests ignored, their status suddenly meaningless. Far from the glowing capital, in the dark edge of map space, Marcus Hale stood alone on the observation deck of Outpost Epsilon 9. The station was old, older than most ships still in service. It creaked softly as it rotated, artificial gravity humming through worn plates. Outside, stars scattered like frost across black glass. Marcus watched them in silence. A small drone hovered nearby, projecting the coalition's message again. He did not need to hear it. He had memorized every word the first time. 2 high-value prisoners, absolute secrecy, no reinforcement expected, minimal support, mission duration indefinite. He exhaled slowly. "Yes," he said at last. "I accept." The drone flickered, transmitted confirmation, and vanished into jump space. Marcus turned away from the stars and walked deeper into the station. His boots echoed through empty corridors as he passed sealed doors and dormant systems. Epsilon 9 had once been a supply hub during an older war, one humans rarely spoke about anymore. Most of the station was powered down. What remained was enough. Enough was all he ever needed. He entered the armory and began checking equipment. Not just weapons, sensors, medical kits, environmental controls, emergency rations. He moved with practiced efficiency, adjusting systems that had not been touched in years. Humans prepared differently than most species, not for what was expected, but for what would go wrong. Hours later, the station's long-range sensors flared. Two coalition transports dropped from hyperspace, escorted by automated drones. Marcus stood in the docking bay as the airlock cycled open. The princesses emerged first, surrounded by energy barriers. Their expressions hardened when they saw him. "This is it," Sarilith said, looking around the empty bay. "This is where they send us to rot." Marcus did not answer immediately. He raised one hand slightly and the guards hesitated. "You can leave," he said to the drones. "I have custody now." There was a pause as protocols checked and rechecked. Then, without ceremony, the drones disengaged. The transport sealed and vanished back into hyperspace. Silence filled the bay. Kalira broke it. "You realize what you've been given," she said. "Every power in the galaxy will try to kill us, or you," Marcus nodded. "I know. And you still accepted." "Yes." Sarilith stepped forward as far as her restraints allowed. "Why?" Marcus met her gaze for the first time. His eyes were tired but steady. "Because they think this is punishment," he said simply. "For you and for me." He keyed a control on his wrist. The energy cuffs loosened, shifting into lighter, non-binding fields. Both princesses froze. "You're releasing us?" Kalira asked carefully. "No," Marcus replied. "I'm adjusting conditions. You are under my protection, not my humiliation." Sarilith studied him, searching for deception. "And what do you expect in return, human?" Marcus gestured toward the corridor. "You follow station rules. You don't sabotage life support. You don't try to kill me. Everything else we'll talk about." They exchanged a glance. This was not how prisoners were treated, not anywhere in known space. As they followed him deeper into the station, Kalira whispered, "He's either a fool or something far more dangerous." Marcus heard her anyway. Humans usually did. He led them to a secured habitation wing, activating lights and systems as they passed. The rooms were simple but clean, designed for long-term survival. Separate quarters, shared common space. "This station will hold," he said. "It has before." Sarilith folded her arms. "You seem very confident." Marcus paused at the doorway. "No," he said. "I'm prepared." He left them there and sealed the door, not locked, just monitored. Alone again, Marcus returned to the observation deck. He activated long-range sensors, scanning for disturbances, unusual signals, anything out of place. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was already regretting its decision. It just didn't know it yet. He looked at the stars and allowed himself a small, grim smile. They had handed him something precious, and humans did not waste what they were trusted to protect. The first 3 days passed in careful silence. Outpost Epsilon 9 drifted through space like a forgotten relic, its outer lights dim, its hull marked by old scars from weapons long obsolete. Inside, systems hummed steadily as Marcus Hale moved through the station on a strict routine. Every hour had purpose. Every corridor was checked. Every sensor was tested twice. Princess Sarilith noticed this first. She stood near the transparent wall of the common area, watching Marcus from a distance as he recalibrated a ceiling sensor without assistance. No drones, no automated arms. Just his own hands and a small tool kit. "He does everything himself," she murmured. Kalira sat at the narrow table behind her, reviewing star charts displayed on a wrist console Marcus had allowed her to use. "Humans value redundancy," she replied. "They trust machines only after they understand their failure." Sarilith glanced back, surprised. "You've studied them." "I study all potential threats," Kalira said calmly. "Until now, humans were not considered one." Marcus finished his work and dropped lightly to the floor. He noticed their attention but did not comment. Instead, he checked the time and walked toward the food preparation unit. "Meal cycle," he said simply. "You'll need nutrition adjusted to station supplies. I've already modified the synthesizer." Sarilith frowned. "You altered it for us?" "Yes." "Why?" Marcus looked at her, confused by the question. "Because starvation reduces survival chances." "That's not what I meant," she snapped. "Most guards would let prisoners suffer." "I'm not most guards," he replied. Kalira watched closely as he worked the console. His movements were precise, efficient, but not rushed. He did not watch them while preparing the meal, yet he was aware of every sound they made. "You don't fear us," Kalira said. Marcus nodded. "Correct. Even knowing who we are." "I know exactly who you are," he said. "That's why I don't fear you," Sarilith bristled. "Careful, human." Marcus turned, holding 2 trays. "Threatening me won't improve your situation." "And what is our situation?" she demanded. He placed the trays on the table. "Alive, protected, monitored." Kalira accepted her tray slowly. The food was simple but adjusted to her biology. That alone told her how much preparation he had done before they arrived. "You anticipated our needs," she said. "I read your medical files," Marcus replied, "and your histories." Sarilith paused mid-bite. "Our histories are sealed." "They were," Marcus said, "until the Coalition got scared." That answer lingered heavily in the air. Later that cycle, the first probe arrived. It slipped out of hyperspace without warning, small and silent, its signature masked by debris drift. Marcus detected it immediately. He did not raise alarms. Instead, he rerouted station power, letting several outer systems appear offline. The probe moved closer, scanning, adjusting, hunting for weakness. Sarilith noticed the lights dim. "What's happening?" "Someone is checking if we're worth attacking," Marcus said calmly. Kalira stood. "Should we hide?" "No," he said. "Observe." The probe crossed an invisible boundary. Marcus triggered a localized electromagnetic pulse, sharp and contained. The probe went dark instantly, drifting uselessly into space. He logged the event, stored the wreckage trajectory, and returned to his console. "That was it?" Sarilith asked. "That was the first test," Marcus replied. "There will be more." Over the next several days, the tests came in different forms: a falsified distress signal, a long-range scan masked as background radiation, a coded message sent in an obsolete trade language, promising extraction in exchange for cooperation. Marcus intercepted them all. He did not tell the princesses everything, but he told them enough. "The galaxy doesn't trust the Coalition," Kalira observed after the 3rd attempt failed. "No," Marcus agreed, "and they don't trust each other." Sarilith crossed her arms. "They think you're weak." Marcus almost smiled. Almost. On the 7th day, a pirate vessel appeared at extreme range. Large, heavily armed, its transponder broadcast false credentials from 3 different factions. Sarilith felt fear coil in her chest. That ship could tear this station apart. "Yes," Marcus said, "if it knew how." He powered down visible weapons and opened a narrow communication channel. "This is Outpost Epsilon 9, he said. "State your intent." The pirate captain laughed openly. "We're here for the prisoners, human. Walk away." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Negative. You're alone." "Yes, we have 30 crew." "Yes." A pause followed. "Then you don't understand the situation." Marcus leaned closer to the console. "I understand it perfectly. You think I'm your weakest obstacle." The pirate snarled. "Final warning." Marcus ended the transmission. Instead of firing weapons, he altered the station's gravity field, pulling nearby debris into a dense cluster between the pirate ship and the outpost. At the same time, He activated ancient mining lasers, repurposed into precision cutters. The pirate ship fired blindly. Its shots hit nothing. Then the debris moved. Chunks of metal and ice slammed into the pirate vessel's sensors, engines, and weapon mounts with devastating accuracy. Not enough to destroy the ship, enough to cripple it. The pirate captain screamed over open channels as his ship spun out of control. Marcus cut the signal and restored normal gravity. Sarilith stared at the display, stunned. "You let them live. They'll spread the story," Marcus said. "Fear travels faster than wreckage." Kalira looked at him with new eyes. "You planned this long before we arrived." "Yes." "Why this station?" Marcus hesitated just for a moment. "Because it was forgotten. Humans don't abandon things we might need again." That night, Sarilith could not sleep. She stood alone in her quarters, staring at the stars, thinking of home, of pride, of how quickly everything had changed. She realized something unsettling. For the first time since her capture, she did not feel helpless. Kalira felt it too. They were not prisoners here. They were assets under protection. On the 10th day, a coalition message finally broke through Marcus's filters. It was short, cold. "Status check. Confirm prisoners secure." Marcus recorded a reply. "Prisoners secure," he said. "Station stable. No incidents." He did not mention the probes, the pirates, the tests. He sent the message and closed the channel. Kalira watched from the doorway. "You're lying to them." "Yes." "Why?" "Because they already decided we're expendable," Marcus replied. "Now they don't need details." Sarilith stepped beside her. "You're isolating us." "I'm buying time," Marcus said. "For what?" Sarilith asked. Marcus looked out into the dark where stars burned silently. For the moment they stopped pretending this was a mistake. Far away in the heart of the galaxy, whispers had already begun. A single human warrior, 2 priceless prisoners, no losses, no leaks. Something was wrong, and the galaxy was starting to notice. The quiet of Outpost Epsilon 9 did not last. The galaxy had taken notice, and attention rarely came without consequences. On the 15th day, the station's sensors picked up a sudden spike, ships emerging from jump space without warning, signatures masked by electronic noise and old shipping codes. Marcus Hale did not rush to alarms. He simply watched. The readings were precise, a coordinated strike. Not pirates this time, professional, multiple craft, each capable of independent attack, operating in perfect synchronization. Sarilith and Kalira, still adjusting to their new environment, were summoned to the observation deck. The stars outside seemed calm, distant, but Marcus's eyes betrayed his attention. "They're coming," he said quietly. Kalira leaned toward the console, scanning the projections. "They have no reason to expect success," she said. "Do they?" Marcus shook his head. "They believe a human cannot defend this outpost. That belief will cost them." Sarilith frowned. "We're small, isolated, with no fleets. Surely we can't survive a fleet attack." Marcus turned to them. "You do not understand human survival. We do not fight the way other species fight. We adapt, we predict, we endure, and we strike when the moment is ours." Kalira's golden eyes narrowed. "You're speaking as if it is already decided." "It is," Marcus said, already moving toward the armory. He did not run. He walked with calm purpose, as if the coming battle was merely another day's work. For the next several hours, the outpost transformed. Marcus activated ancient defense systems buried beneath decades of neglect. Gravity turrets, repurposed mining lasers, sensor networks once thought offline, all flickered to life. He worked quickly, with practiced hands and methodical precision. Every corridor, every junction, every access point was prepared, camouflaged, or booby-trapped, not for brute force, but for calculation. Sarilith and Kalira watched, initially in disbelief. Then slowly, unease turned to grudging admiration. The human warrior was not merely preparing defenses. He was anticipating every move, every contingency, every possible angle of attack. As darkness fell across the station, the first ships arrived. Sleek and black, they tore through space with predatory precision, weapons glowing faintly. Marcus did not panic. He did not run. "They're scanning," Kalira whispered. "They're trying to find a weak point." Marcus smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Then they will find none. And if they do, it will be their last mistake." The attack began silently. The enemy ships fired at the outpost, targeting visible turrets and weak points, but Marcus had predicted this. He activated hidden systems. Defense drones that looked like rusted old supply bots came to life, moving with uncanny coordination. Energy shields pulsed and deflected the first shots. Turrets rotated with speed unmatched by their operators' expectations. Sarilith and Kalira felt the first tremors as the station shook. They braced themselves against railings. Yet there was no chaos, no panic. Marcus moved through the station as if it were empty halls in a quiet training facility. He issued calm commands through the station's internal channels. Activate countermeasures Alpha, deploy decoy arrays, maintain shield integrity, prepare emergency gravity fields. By the time the first enemy boarding craft attempted to dock, they found the airlocks locked, gravity fields disorienting, and sensors feeding false readings. One by one, the invaders were forced into corridors designed as traps, where even their superior numbers counted for nothing. Sarilith could not hide her astonishment. "How is he doing this alone?" she whispered. Kalira's voice was quieter, almost thoughtful. "Because he's not alone, not in the way the galaxy understands it. He's prepared for everything, anticipating everything." The battle raged through the night. Marcus moved from station to station, console to console, turret to turret. He was always one step ahead, countering attacks before they occurred, guiding the station itself like a living organism. By the dawn of the second cycle, the enemy fleet was in disarray. One by one, their ships were disabled, forced to retreat, or left spinning in orbit without power. Marcus had inflicted maximum disruption without a single human casualty, and most importantly, without exposing the princesses to harm. When the final enemy vessel disengaged, drifting into a debris field, Marcus returned to the observation deck. Sarilith and Kalira followed him, both silent for the first time since their arrival. "They underestimated you," Sarilith said softly. "I don't think they understand humans," Marcus replied. "We don't just survive, we endure, and when cornered we do not break, we adapt and we respond." Kalira studied him. "They will not stop, others will come. The galaxy will hear of this, and then more will come." Marcus nodded. "Then I will prepare for them too. Every attack will meet its equal if not its better." The princesses could see it clearly now. They were not merely prisoners. They were under the protection of someone who saw threats before they emerged, who understood survival in ways their empires never had to consider. Over the next week, Marcus focused not only on defenses, but also on teaching the princesses a measure of independence. He allowed them to handle communication systems, navigation sensors, and basic environmental controls, not as an act of leniency but as preparation. He did not coddle. He did not lecture. He guided. One evening, after another false distress signal was intercepted, Sarilith spoke quietly. "I never imagined a human could command so much. Alone." Marcus did not answer immediately. He was monitoring sensors, tracking every subtle fluctuation in space near the outpost. Finally he spoke. "Humans have always done more with less. It is not skill alone, it is necessity, and necessity breeds resourcefulness." Kalira added, "and patience. You wait for the right moment, then act with precision." "Yes," Marcus said, "exactly. The galaxy assumes we panic or we falter, but we observe, we learn, then we respond, not hastily, not recklessly, precisely." Sarilith's silver-blue skin glimmered faintly in the light. "Then the galaxy has underestimated more than you." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "They always do. They cannot imagine how far a human will go to protect what matters." During the following days, the attacks became sporadic. Small ships attempted minor probes, some using stealth tactics, others using outdated command codes. All failed. Marcus countered each silently, efficiently, leaving no trace of panic or error. The princesses were safe, alive, and gradually realizing that the human warrior was unlike anything the galaxy had expected. Kalira finally spoke one evening as the station's lights dimmed. "Why do you care? Why protect us so thoroughly?" Marcus paused. "Because they handed you to me. That makes you my responsibility. That is enough reason for a human. That is all the reason we need." The statement hung in the air. The princesses could feel it, calm, unwavering, absolute. Protection was not optional. Survival was not negotiable. They were valued because Marcus valued them, and that made every outside threat secondary. The following day, a new sensor alert lit the observation console. Another fleet, larger this time, appeared on the edge of system range. Marcus did not flinch. He merely activated long-range decoys, rerouted shield power, and prepared for the next move. Sarilith glanced at Kalira. "Do you see it now? He's not just a warrior. He's an entire defense network." Kalira nodded slowly. "And we are the core of it. He is protecting us, not for reward, not for glory, simply because he will not fail." As the ships moved closer, Marcus's voice carried across the deck. "Let them come. Let the galaxy test a human once more. They will learn the cost of misjudgment." The princesses exchanged a glance, fear tempered by respect and awe. They were no longer helpless captives. They were part of a plan that had already begun to rewrite the rules of engagement, that had already started teaching the galaxy a lesson it had refused to learn. And for the first time, Sarilith and Kalira understood that the human warrior they had been handed to was not just their protector. He was a force of nature in human form. The first wave of attackers had failed. The second was approaching. And Marcus Hale, alone, ready and unshakable, would meet it on his terms. Outpost Epsilon 9 was no longer a forgotten station. It was the heart of a human strategy that the galaxy would soon regret underestimating. As the stars outside shimmered, silent and distant, Marcus activated the station's final early warning sensors. Every movement, every signature, every anomaly would be accounted for. The galaxy had begun to awaken to a simple truth: humans do not surrender. Humans do not retreat. And humans never forget. Sarilith, watching him work, whispered almost to herself, "The galaxy is going to regret this. They have no idea what they've done." Marcus did not turn. He did not need to, he already knew. And the battle for Outpost Epsilon 9, and for the two princesses under his protection, was only just beginning. The galaxy's attention was no longer a whisper. Outpost Epsilon 9 had become a signal fire, drawing eyes and fleets alike. Reports of the outpost surviving multiple attacks without casualties, or losses of the princesses, spread quickly. Rumors twisted with exaggeration, but the truth was far more unsettling for those who had sent the fleets. Marcus Hale moved calmly through the station, reviewing sensor data, adjusting shield frequencies, and mapping the likely trajectories of enemy ships. Outside, the stars seemed peaceful, but the readings told another story. Multiple fleets were approaching from different directions, each unaware of the other's plans. Coordination among human enemies was chaos in itself, and Marcus intended to exploit that. Sarilith and Kalira were no longer passive observers. They had begun learning the station's systems, guided by Marcus with patience and discipline. While he had kept their quarters separate, he had allowed them access to observation consoles and environmental controls. The first days had been for survival. Now the lessons were for empowerment. "I don't think they understand what's happening," Sarilith said, studying one of the tactical displays. "The galaxy believes we are sitting ducks." Kalira leaned closer, tracing fleet paths with her fingers. "They've sent their best commanders human, multiple empires, and none of them trusts the others, yet none can reach us before the others interfere. Marcus looked over their shoulders. Good observation. That is exactly why they fail. They assume isolation guarantees weakness. In truth, it guarantees nothing. Humans adapt, humans endure, humans respond. Saralith frowned. Your confidence is unsettling. Confidence is not arrogance, Marcus replied. It is preparation. And preparation is everything. The next hours passed in tense calculation. Sensors lit up with minor contacts, small craft attempting to gauge the outpost's defenses. Each was neutralized silently. Marcus did not kill unnecessarily. He rerouted gravity fields, activated decoys, or trapped the vessels in orbital patterns that made them useless. Kalira studied him carefully. You do not strike unless necessary, she observed. Humans value efficiency, Marcus said. Wasted energy and lives are mistakes, not victories. Saralith nodded slowly. Then every move we see is deliberate, not reactive. Yes. He paused. This is how humans survive wars, not by brute force but by calculation, anticipation, and decisive action at the right moment. Later, the first coordinated fleet reached system range. Its ships formed a wedge, a classic military formation meant to overwhelm weak defenses. Marcus had already predicted this. Sensors measured mass, velocity, power signatures, and likely attack patterns. The outpost's automated turrets rotated, shields adjusted, and decoy arrays flared silently, invisible to the enemy. The fleet fired its first volley. Missiles and lasers cut through space, striking the outer shields. Energy rippled across the station, but none reached internal systems. The outer hull groaned, old metal protesting, but the station held. Marcus activated secondary systems. Mining lasers, long dormant, repurposed as precision interceptors, moved in tandem with small, rusted drones. They did not aim to destroy the fleet outright. They aimed to disorient, to divide, to make each ship question its safety. The enemy commander's frustration became apparent through open communications. This human cannot be serious, the voice snapped. We will overwhelm him, Marcus responded once calmly. You already have been overwhelmed. You simply do not know it yet. By the time the first wave of boarding craft attempted to land, the airlocks were rerouted through a maze of gravity wells and false passages. Every attempt failed. The attackers were trapped in corridors that seemed familiar, only to twist into traps designed to disarm and immobilize them. Saralith watched, fascinated and terrified, as the supposedly simple human orchestrated an entire battle across multiple systems without leaving the observation deck. I cannot believe this is one person, she whispered. Kalira nodded, voice low. This is not one person. This is the experience of humanity concentrated in one warrior. Over the next cycle, Marcus allowed the princesses to participate, not in combat, not in risk, but in observation and tactical evaluation. He explained energy field manipulation, sensor prediction, and resource allocation. He did not simplify, he did not insult, he taught. Watch the patterns, he instructed. Do not react emotionally, predict the outcomes. That is how humans survive. Kalira traced the movements of a disabled enemy ship, noting how Marcus had diverted its weapons into the void without ever touching it directly. We are learning a human approach to war, she said. Yes, Marcus replied. And you will remember it because the galaxy will not forget it. 2 days later, a larger fleet appeared. This one was better coordinated, with advanced cloaking and shield technology. Marcus had anticipated this escalation. The station's gravity fields, energy turrets, and sensor arrays had already been adjusted. Decoy vessels, hollow and empty, were projected through hyperspace jumps to lure parts of the fleet away. Saralith's silver-blue skin glimmered with awe. They are superior in numbers, yet they are already losing. They underestimate human ingenuity, Marcus said, and they do so at their own peril. Kalira leaned over a tactical console. "Do you ever rest?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Rest is a luxury humans afford only after the threat has passed. We do not panic. We endure." Hours later, the fleet reached the outpost. The first attack came from stealth drones attempting to bypass external shields. They never reached the station. Gravity fields ripped them apart. Sensor loops trapped them in endless feedback, making the pilots believe the station was empty. The main fleet attempted a direct assault. Energy shields absorbed the impact, dispersing heat and kinetic force. Mining lasers struck with precise calculation, targeting engines and weapon systems without wasting energy. Small drones moved with uncanny coordination, feeding data into the station's central control. Sarilith and Kalira observed silently, their understanding of human warfare deepening. They were no longer afraid. They were participants in a living lesson of survival and strategy. By the third day, the fleet had sustained severe damage. Ships were disabled, retreating, or trapped in the debris fields created by Marcus. No human life had been lost. No princess had been harmed. Sarilith whispered to Kalira, "We are learning what it means to be protected by a human, not just guarded but truly defended." Kalira nodded, "And the galaxy is beginning to notice. Soon, word will spread, and when it does, no fleet will underestimate a single human warrior again." As night fell on the outpost's artificial cycles, Marcus walked to the observation deck, looking at the remaining fleet signals fading into space. He allowed himself a small, grim smile. "They will return," he said quietly. "The galaxy always does. And when they do, we will be ready." Sarilith stepped beside him. "And if they send more fleets than before," Marcus looked out into the stars, "then we will adapt. Humans do not fear the impossible. We respond, and we endure, always." The princesses exchanged a glance. They understood now. Outpost Epsilon 9 was not a station. It was a fortress built by anticipation, calculation, and unwavering human will. The galaxy had assumed weakness. It had assumed simplicity. It had assumed that one human could be ignored. And it was already beginning to regret that assumption. In the days that followed, Marcus allowed the princesses greater autonomy within the station. They learned to operate communications, navigate sensor arrays, and anticipate threats in their own ways. Each lesson was subtle, measured, and deliberate. "The galaxy believes in fear," Marcus said one evening. "We teach it respect." By the end of the fourth cycle, no enemy craft remained within detectable range. Every probe, drone, and ship that had attempted to breach the outpost had failed. Marcus had not only protected the princesses, but also demonstrated a power the galaxy had never anticipated. Sarilith's voice broke the silence. "We are alive because of him." Kalira added, "Alive and perhaps wiser than our entire empires." Marcus allowed a faint nod. "Humans do not survive by chance. We survive by understanding, by planning, and by acting decisively when it is necessary. Others may call it reckless. Others may call it impossible. But it is simply human." The stars outside shimmered silently. Somewhere far away, fleets regrouped, war councils convened, and empires reconsidered their strategy. The galaxy had begun to learn an important truth. A single human warrior, fully prepared and fully committed, was more dangerous than the sum of countless fleets. And at the center of it all, two alien princesses began to understand that being handed to this human was not their end. It was the beginning of something the galaxy would never forget. As Marcus monitored incoming signals and adjusted station defenses, he spoke quietly to the princesses. "We wait, we observe, we act when necessary. That is how humans endure." Sarilith, with eyes glinting faintly, whispered, "And they will regret sending more against us." Kalira's voice was calm, almost reverent. "Yes, the galaxy is about to learn what humans can do when cornered." And Marcus, silent but resolute, knew that the next wave would come. He also knew that it would meet the full measure of human ingenuity, patience, and power. Outpost Epsilon 9 had become a symbol, not of fear, not of surrender, but of human endurance, and the galaxy had no choice but to take notice. The galaxy had taken notice, but noticing was not enough. News of Outpost Epsilon 9's survival, of the human warrior who had single-handedly thwarted fleets and protected two of the most valuable prisoners in the war, spread like wildfire. Across dozens of systems, military councils debated, commanders argued, and politicians whispered in fear. Marcus Hale stood alone on the observation deck, silent, his eyes scanning the far reaches of space. The stars were calm, serene, betraying nothing of the chaos that had approached the station. He had anticipated every move so far, and he knew more would come. They always did. Sarilith and Kaelira had grown into their roles beside him. They no longer walked behind him as fearful captives. They moved through the station, observed systems, and even offered suggestions. Marcus had allowed them small freedoms within the limits of safety, teaching them to anticipate, to think ahead, to read the patterns of war as humans did. "Another fleet," Kaelira said quietly, pointing to the long-range sensors. "Larger than the last, and more coordinated." Marcus did not flinch. "Expected," he replied. "They have begun to gather all forces available. They think overwhelming numbers will work where strategy failed." Sarilith frowned. "And will it?" Marcus turned to them, his expression calm but resolute. "Not if they underestimate humans." Preparations began immediately. Marcus did not panic, nor did he hesitate. He moved through the station, activating shields, recalibrating gravity turrets, rerouting power to critical systems, and preparing decoy arrays. Every movement was deliberate, calculated. Every step had purpose. "Why do you do all of this alone?" Sarilith asked as she followed him through the armory. Marcus glanced at her. "Humans adapt. We do not rely on numbers to compensate for strategy. We rely on knowledge, anticipation, and precision. One person properly prepared can accomplish what entire fleets cannot." Kaelira nodded slowly. "Then it is not just the station. It is you. You are the Force." Marcus said nothing, but the corners of his mouth lifted slightly in acknowledgement. As the enemy fleet approached, sensors began detecting cloaked ships attempting to infiltrate the perimeter. Marcus anticipated this. Gravity fields and decoy signals manipulated their paths, forcing them into calculated traps. Automated turrets activated, intercepting enemy drones and disabling smaller craft without ever exposing the station or its occupants to danger. Sarilith watched silently. "They don't even realize they are being destroyed before they can touch us." "No," Marcus replied. "They only realize it after the fact, and that is enough." Hours passed, and the fleet's frustration became visible even through long-range signals. Attempts to breach the station grew desperate, more reckless. Marcus had already predicted their likely moves and had set countermeasures in place. Each attack failed before it could achieve its goal. Kaelira whispered, almost to herself, "They underestimated him." "Every single one of them." "Yes," Marcus said, "and they will continue to underestimate humans until they learn the hard way." By the second cycle, the enemy's numbers had thinned. Several ships had been disabled or forced into retreat, unable to recover from the precision strikes that Marcus orchestrated from the station's observation deck. The humans had achieved a form of control that was not brute force but absolute mastery over the battlefield. The princesses began to understand this. They realized that they were part of something greater than themselves. They were not just protected. They were central to a strategy that would leave the galaxy reconsidering its assumptions. Sarilith finally asked, "Why protect us with such determination?" Marcus paused, looking at the stars, calm yet focused. "Because the galaxy handed you to me. That makes you my responsibility. That alone is enough reason for a human. It is all the reason we need." Kalira nodded, understanding more with each passing moment. You protect because it is the right thing, not for reward, not for glory. Yes, Marcus said. Humans do not act for recognition. We act because survival demands it and because those in our care are worth it. The enemy fleet, sensing that their attacks were failing, attempted a final, desperate maneuver. A full frontal assault with their most advanced ships, coordinating shields, weapons, and boarding operations. Marcus was ready. He activated every system, every trap, and every contingency he had prepared over the past cycles. The battle unfolded with precision. Mining lasers targeted engines and weapon systems. Decoys drew attention away from the station. Gravity wells trapped boarding craft in loops of confusion, and automated drones struck with perfect timing. Marcus moved through the station, issuing commands calmly and efficiently, coordinating each response as if he were conducting an orchestra. Sarilith and Kalira observed, awed and silent. They could not fully comprehend the scale of what he was accomplishing alone, but they understood the principle. Humans do not falter when cornered. They adapt. They endure. They respond. By the third cycle, the enemy fleet had suffered devastating losses. Ships were disabled, retreating, or trapped beyond repair. Marcus had protected the station, the princesses, and ensured that not a single human aboard Epsilon 9 had been harmed. Sarilith finally spoke, her voice low but steady. We are alive because of him. Kalira added, alive and perhaps wiser than our entire empires. Marcus allowed a faint nod. Humans do not survive by chance. We survive through preparation, observation, and decisive action. Others may call it reckless, impossible, or even foolish, but it is human. The stars outside shimmered, distant and silent. Far away, the remnants of fleets regrouped, commanders and politicians recalculated, and the galaxy reconsidered its assumptions. Marcus knew more would come. They always did. But he also knew that any force sent against him would meet his full preparedness, his calculated strategy, and his unshakable determination. Sarilith, her silver-blue skin glimmering softly, whispered, "The galaxy has underestimated him, and now they will regret it." Kalira's golden eyes were steady. Yes, they cannot imagine what humans can do when cornered, and they will learn it painfully. Marcus's gaze remained fixed on the stars. Let them come. Every attack, every fleet, every attempt will fail. Not through luck, not through brute strength, but through precision, anticipation, and endurance. That is human. The days that followed were marked by a tense quiet. Scouts and minor fleets probed the edges of the system, testing defenses. Marcus countered each quietly, efficiently, without exposing the station or its inhabitants to danger. Sarilith and Kalira became increasingly capable, learning to monitor systems, anticipate attacks, and even suggest adjustments. The galaxy believes in fear, Marcus said one evening, observing distant blips on the sensor array. We teach it respect. By the seventh day after the last major assault, no enemy presence remained within detectable range. The outpost had survived, the princesses were safe, and Marcus had demonstrated a power the galaxy had not anticipated. That a single human, fully prepared and fully committed, could counter the forces of multiple empires. Sarilith looked at him, awe in her voice. We owe our lives to you, and not just our lives, perhaps the survival of our people, Kalira added. They will speak of this for years. Entire fleets will hesitate before they act. Your strategy, your endurance, it will be legendary. Marcus allowed a faint smile. Humans endure, that is all. Recognition is secondary. The princesses understood now. Being handed to Marcus had not been their end. It had been the beginning of a new lesson for the galaxy, a lesson in respect, strategy, and the enduring strength of humans. As the stars outside shimmered silently, Marcus spoke quietly to the princesses. We wait, we observe, we act when necessary, humans endure, and those who do not respect that will regret it. Sarilith whispered, "The galaxy is beginning to learn. Soon no one will underestimate a single human again." Kalira added almost reverently, "Yes, the galaxy is about to understand the full measure of human capability." Marcus nodded, his eyes unwavering. The next challenge would come. They always did, but he was ready. The station was ready, and humanity, through him, had established a power the galaxy could neither ignore nor undo. Outpost Epsilon 9 was no longer a forgotten station. It was a symbol of human endurance, ingenuity, and protection. Two princesses had been entrusted to one human warrior, and through him, the galaxy had learned that humans do not surrender, humans do not retreat, and humans never forget. And as the stars continued to shine silently beyond the station's hull, Marcus Hale prepared for whatever the galaxy would send next. It would meet the full measure of human will, and it would regret every miscalculation. The galaxy had handed its challenge to a human, and in doing so it had sealed its own lesson. No empire, no fleet, no commander would ever doubt the strength, the patience, or the power of a human warrior again. The outpost remained quiet. The princesses stood beside Marcus, watching the stars. Together they understood that survival was not chance. Survival was preparation. Survival was human. And the galaxy, as it continued to stir and regroup, would learn that lesson too late to avoid regret.